Good evening. I am so thankful that you all showed up tonight. We're live streaming this, and so we have people that are watching from home. I'm glad you came here, and for those of you at home, we're glad to have you. I just want to open up tonight with just a word of prayer, so if you don't mind, we'll just bow our heads and we'll pray. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that you give us to serve people in our community, to see their needs and to care about them. And I thank you for the folks that are here that have either struggled with this issue and so have a compassion for others as a result, or they're interested in helping in this in some way. Lord, thank you for them. Thank you for especially those who work in public places in our schools, our universities, our health and welfare program, our police officers, those who have to deal with this issue at an intimate level. We just pray that you would encourage them tonight and lead us on. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. My name is Jim Putman. For those of you who don't attend a church here, but you've been invited, I'm really glad you're here. For those of you who are a part of our church, great to have you. Here's what we're doing tonight. I want to share with you what's happened in the last couple of years, and so what we as a church are dealing with. And then I want to share with you kind of what's happening as a result of that. I don't know about you, but the way it usually works for me and for our team is we see a need. We see the need as an opportunity to help. And as we dive into that, the next step is kind of revealed to us. What next? What comes from this? Is there another open door to meet needs in a different way? And so that's been the journey that we're on. Tonight, as you came in, hopefully you picked up one of these. It's just a card that kind of tells you what we're doing, ways you can help. If you didn't, if you'd raise your hand, I think I have people in the back that are going to be grabbing them and bringing them to you. So they're coming for you right now. Just leave your hand up, and they'll find you. For me personally, this is a subject that has meant a lot to me. In one of the videos, the docuseries we created, you would have become familiar at least with my wife's face. My wife, when she was 17 years old, attempted suicide. And God kept her alive through all of that experience. And she believed a certain set of lies. And because she believed these untruths, she acted upon them. And I just think about what would have been the result in my life if she would have succeeded in death by suicide. How would my life have been different? Next to my walk with God and the love of my parents and family members, my wife has made the biggest difference in my life. And I wonder what that would have been like. As my wife had always struggled with depression, and since that time, she struggled with some depression. My kids have struggled with depression, and I personally, over the years, have had issues with depression. And as I've been on my own journey, it occurs to me that, there are a lot more people struggling than we know, but we just don't talk about it. We're not supposed to talk about it. And so we don't talk about it, so everybody thinks they're the only one that deals with it. They think there's something wrong with them. And so our goal in this past series that we put together, and in this future that we're working on together, is to say we want to get rid of, we want to destigmatize the issues that we're dealing with so that people can bring them out of the darkness into the light. That's our goal. Now, let me just give you a little bit of history. Real Life now, for a couple of years, has been working on what's called the Irreplaceable Project. I want to share with you how that came to be, because you're going to meet some of the people here tonight. We, for years, have been doing things in the community, all kinds of different partnerships. You know that we do that. We look for needs, and then we try to minister to them. And so we have a Lifelines ministry and a thrift store that makes money that pours into helping single moms and helping people that are struggling with drug addiction. And we have job fairs and youth ministries. And as you came in today, you see we're trying to collect all the food the school districts need for their after-school programs, their kids that don't have food. We try to supply everything we can to all their needs for the entire school districts so that they have food for these kids. We've tried to do that in many other things. The sports and outdoors, as you came in, our goal was to take kids that maybe didn't make the varsity team, in high school or junior high, middle school. They can only take 12 or 15 kids, but there's 100 kids that come out. What happens to those kids who don't make the team? Well, I'll tell you, they play far too many video games. A lot of times they don't have supervision. And so we've thought, okay, how are we going to reach out? Well, like many of you in our community, as we've been reaching out and building partnerships with the medical community, with the school districts, some great partnerships have come into existence. One of our best partnerships, close friends are involved in the Lakeland School District. And so we've had some relationship with them. One of the things that's been going on in the last couple of years is just the numbers of teen suicides. And it seems like we're just getting rocked. About the time you start to be able to move past the last one, another one happens. And so one day I'm driving down the road, I just heard about another teen suicide. And I get a phone call from a guy named Ron, and you're going to meet him at the end. And Ron this is somebody that's close to Ron, and we're talking on the phone, and Ron's super passionate. He's like, we got to do something. We got to do something. In the old days when there was all these kids getting drunk and stuff, they used to pretend there was these car accidents and try to freak these kids out to keep them from drinking. We got to do something to freak these kids out. And I was like, oh, man, that's an interesting thought. We got to do something. I get it. But what that did in my mind is it sparked a thought. Nowadays, rather than creating sort of mock crashes, we have the ability to use video and to tell a story. And in one of my groups is a friend of mine, and his name is Caleb Applegate, and he works as a part of Kairos, which is a kind of a Hollywood movie production team, and he's in my group. And so after I talking to Ron, I'm just thinking, and I just call him and say, hey, Caleb, I have an idea. What if we were to take people who had attempted but failed and were to start to talk to them about what the lies were that they had believed? And what if we were to look at when kids do succeed, people do succeed, death by suicide, what if we were to take the letters and we were to start to work through the lies and we were to start to say, okay, here's the lies, here's what people believe, but then for those who had attempted and failed, fast forward, their life is different now, and they're telling why they did it, and try to tell these kids what you feel, what you think isn't true. And so these lies you're believing, they're false, you're not ruined, you're not worthless, people wouldn't be better off without you. And to show that you have a life beyond those feelings. What if we started to do that? He goes, oh, that's a good idea. Let me call my partners. And so he calls his partners, and he calls me back in a very short time. He says, we're in. I go, what do you mean you're in? He goes, we'll do it for just cost. We'll do this video production for just cost. And I said, whoa, okay. Well, before you do anything, I don't even know. I mean, I'd want to partner with the school district. I don't know if this was something we could do or not. I mean, we could do it in the church with all the youth kids, but I don't know that we'd be able to do it in the school. And so I called Dr. Becky Meyer. And Dr. Becky Meyer and I sat down with Jim Blazin, who's part of our team up north that's built a great relationship with the Lakeland School District. And we got together, and after hearing the idea, she said, done, we're in. If you know Becky, she goes, ooh, I got tingles on my arms. I got tingles on my arms. What that means is that she's excited about it. She's like, whoa. And so we said, well, what could we do? And that led to meetings going, okay, we could interview kids. We could go and speak to the kids and to find out what they're believing and how they've been impacted. And we'll open up the school district to you. And so for us, we were like, whoa, okay, this happened. I can't believe this is happening. We could actually create a partnership between a church and a school, which doesn't happen around the United States. Which led to me calling back Caleb and going, okay, I need to know, what would it cost to do something like this? And that led to him telling me the number, and I was like, whoa, that's doing it at cost. It's like $150,000. I'm like, oh, okay, it was a nice idea. A few hours later, I'm driving down the road, and I get a phone call from a friend, and he says, hey, I don't know why I'm supposed to call you, but I'm supposed to call you. And he works in the financial areas, and he's a wealthy guy. And I said, well, it's funny that you should call me. This just happened. And he said, do it. We're in. And so in just a very short period of time. And then something happened in the markets. You know what happened with the economy in this last year. And we got started on the project, and we're going to do this, and our church is in, everybody's in, and then the economy goes bad, and this guy isn't able to do what he wanted to do. And then one day, another family walks in and says, hey, I heard about that project that you're doing. We got it. We want to cover it. And so in a very short period of time, the finances, the movie company, the partnerships with the school district all came to be. And as a result of that, we created a docuseries that's designed with two-pronged attack. One, to work with the public school system. Because there's a separation of church and state, we can deal with the issues in certain ways. With the relationship that we've built with Principal Chris McDougall and you know, all the principals and Dr. Becky Meyer and her team, we've been able to do something for the public school system in their health classes that's formed around what's called their Sources of Strength program. There's been such an issue in the last years that Lakeland School District has created this Sources of Strength program where it's a peer-to-peer group sort of setting where kids are talking about these issues. And so now we've created content for that. And then secondly, we've created content for churches. Churches in America, they're having the same kinds of struggles with teen suicide. This doesn't just happen in the secular world, it's happening in churches. And churches tend to shy away from this. They don't do material on these kinds of things. They're not equipped. So we put together something for churches across the United States of America. And this last week, we opened up the first session of this with 700 students plus adults, another 150, 200 adults. And the goal for this is first to deal with kids who are struggling with suicidal thoughts and struggling with those kinds of things. But secondly, to help them understand what bullying does, what careless words do, training kids to go, I can help my friends. I can be an asset to the community. I can be one who understands other kids. Teaching the kids in church to not only be mentally, to help them bring things into light so that they can work on those things, but so that they can help others around them, creating better friends. What would it look like for us? I mean, just in the first week, 700 plus kids, those who are dealing with these issues, and there are many, are getting to talk about it. And now they're also learning how to talk about it and how to talk about it with other kids in the school district, unleashing 700 kids on the public schools in our area who care about this issue and know how to deal with it. Isn't that awesome? And then we've been working with a mental health team, and mental health experts are going through the stuff we've created and creating parent support systems and educating parents, because parents don't know what's going on and how to deal with all this. So we have a group of people. We have concerned parents that have been through this, that are helping us create support systems, the Farmsworths and folks that we just have an amazing team of psychiatrists and counselors and medical health folks that are helping us start to deal with the other issues surrounding this topic that nobody wants to talk about. What I want to do tonight first is I want to bring out Caleb Applegate from Kairos, and I want to bring out Dr. Becky Meyer, and come on out here for a minute. I want you to meet these folks. This woman right here, Dr. Becky Meyer is on my top 5 women on the planet list. She is a hero in my view. And
Thank you.
yeah, and the whole team that she's got, Lynn Pasley, you know, that she's got a team of people over there that care about kids. We're blessed to have a school district where these teachers and these parents and these administrators really care about these kids. It's not just a job for them. And so I'm blessed to have that. As you've been going through this project, and I'll let you grab this mic right here. As you've been going through this project, is it on? Let me see. It's on.
Hello.
Yep. What is it that, you know, as you've been going through this, dealing with this, you helped create the Sources of Strength program. What are you learning about this subject that you wish everybody would know?
Well, you kind of hit on it. I think it's just that kids want to talk and they want to be able to process. So if they have a trusted adult they can talk to, whether it's their parent, an aunt, you know, a teacher, a counselor, a youth minister, somebody that they can talk to. But I think it helps all humans, but especially adolescents, as they're kind of like growing. They want to be able to talk through their feelings and say, is this normal? Are other people feeling like this? How do I, you know, what's triggering me? How do I deal with it in a healthy way? And they just want to talk about it and not be isolated. And even recently with COVID, it's even added more isolation on top. So I think this is even more important now than it was when we started the project.
Yeah. When you think about this with parents, do you think that parents just don't know? Is it just that they're so busy? What's going on there?
No. I've been doing this for a long time. I was a school counselor. This is like my 28th year in education. I was a school counselor, and my doctorate's actually in psychology. So I've done a lot of research and then just more like living about it and with other families and things. I really feel like it's a fear. It's a fear of like, if I talk about it, then they're going to know about it. And if we just kind of put our blinders on and stay in denial, then it won't come up in our family and we won't have to talk about it, and they won't know that it's something. So with social media and everything at the fingertips, and then some of the weird stuff we've talked about with social media and those apps and different, one of the reasons we even started this was that 13 Reasons Why, which I still haven't seen to this day, but a lot of people have told us about it. And just trying to combat that with, let's be open and talk that these feelings are natural when you're growing up. And at some point, everybody has feelings of despair or questioning, or you talked about depression, but let's talk about it as a family. Let's make open family. And I think I really feel like parents are doing the best they can, but to combat social media, that's like instant everything. And then there is a lot of, work, and the double families working, and it's, the family dinner is not as, prevalent as it used to be. But then that fear factor. And so I think if parents kind of let that go a little bit and say, let's just be honest and talk to kids and have family conversations and family meetings, and I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah. As you think about this, you're the Sources of Strength program and what's going on there. Having kids be open and honest about talking about it, how's that helping down there at the school?
Well, we have a lot of, we're the first school district, and I'm not trying to be competitive, but we are the first school district in the state that has all 11 schools have the Sources of Strength. And you hit on it a little bit. Yeah. And that's a big thank you to our school counselors, if any of them are here or you know any of them, because they really pushed for that, our school counselors. We have all of the schools. And really the power of that is you do learn about trusted adults and who you could go to, and then spirituality is one of the things on the wheel, exercise, healthy eating. There's like 12 things on the wheel that are healthy things that you can do. But the real power of Sources of Strength is that the peers are talking to the peers, so they help each other. If you're old like us, then you know about back in Natural Helpers. Sorry, I'm putting you in the same boat.
I see it.
Natural Helpers used to be a program way back, and that was peers talking to peers, and it was really successful because peers, they help each other, and if they know at what point they need to get an adult involved, but they help each other, peers talking to peers, so they don't feel abnormal. They think this is natural stuff, let's talk about it, and then what are healthy ways to deal with it. So,
well, Becky, I'm thankful for your friendship. Thank you for your passion, and I'm all this work that's been done, I'm just praying that God continues it, because right now more than ever, our kids need it.
Yeah. And I do want to thank you publicly. I've thanked you a lot, but it really is a lot to do with real life and Caleb behind here and their heart. I mean, we definitely had brainstorming, but then the people that took the work and moved it forward are people here, Caleb and his group and Jim and his group. So it really just everyone working together, but it wouldn't have been done without your group in real life. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Now, before we show you, we're going to show you just a slice of what's been created. So let's go ahead and let's show the video trailer that's been created. This is just the trailer for Irreplaceable.
What is it like being a teenager in 2020?
Social media has a huge impact on teens' emotions, and I feel like cyberbullying especially can have a giant toll on someone's life.
Us as teens have a lot of stress with school, sports, family, friends.
A lot of us deal with depression and anxiety.
Your worst nightmare, one of your students completing suicide.
In the last several years, here in this area, we've had a huge number of both kids and adults committing suicide.
It has become pretty much an epidemic across the entire country. We need to, as adults, be able to say, you are irreplaceable. Somebody in this world right now wants to help you.
You all are so loved, so valued, and absolutely irreplaceable.
Now, my generation, we're tired of it. That's why a lot of us are getting up here and we're talking about it, and it needs to be talked about.
Parents need to love their kids. Friends need to love their friends. One word can change someone's life.
Life doesn't get better sometimes. You just have to get stronger.
This is Caleb Applegate, and he is the one of the leads for Kairos and Cairo. I always put the S on it. Caleb, as you were going through the interviews, you and I would talk. Sometimes as you were doing, like we had, I don't know how many hundreds of video hours. Just to give you an example, they allowed us, Chris McDougall, principal, had us come into Timberlake. And 398 kids, I think, or something in the class, or in the chapel, in the gym. And Chris opened up to the kids that if you would like to talk, if suicide has affected you at a level of you've lost somebody you care about, you have thought about it seriously yourself, if you would be willing to be interviewed. In order to do that, you have to take home a permission slip. You have to talk to your parents and get permission to do this. And we had talked about maybe, 20, 30 kids, because, middle schoolers especially are kind of quiet. They don't want to talk about stuff. 197 out of that number of kids in that school came forward. That's the ones who filled out paperwork. 197 of the half of the kids came forward to say they've thought about it, been impacted by it, and it shook us. I mean, you and I had to go, how are you guys going to do that many videos? Because once they say yes, I mean, we can't just blow them off. And then we had talked about the ones you're really worried about are never going to go home and talk to their parents about it. They're not going to get this. So there's that whole number that wasn't in there. And we knew there was a problem, but we were blown away by that. After going through all the interviews and everything, tell me something that really stood out to you in general.
Oof, yeah, good question. Well, we were blown away by the amount of. Can you hear me now? I don't speak on stage much. No, we were blown away at the amount of kids that came forward. It was pretty overwhelming.
And that was just
honest.
one school.
Yeah.
It was almost the same as the other schools.
So our crew looked at each other and we were like, uh-oh. We need to rethink this. No, so what stood out? I think there were themes. Becky, you pointed out cyberbullying and social media. And there was a lot of that, but I think one of the major themes that stood out was just not being able to talk to mom and dad about what they were feeling, because they would hear things like, you're just feeling that way, you'll wake up tomorrow feeling different, it's just in your head.
You're just a kid.
You're just a kid. Yeah. We would hear that over and over and over again, and these kids would just bawl. It was intense. And these aren't kids who were just like feeling that way that day. Many of these kids had attempted. Like they got that low that they had attempted. And so we were just floored, and we didn't go in probing. We would let the cameras roll, and we wanted to create an environment that was safe, that they felt like they could be heard. And so we would just roll, and it was unbelievable what they shared with us. A lot you've not seen. We have over 200 hours of footage.
Yeah, we're also talking about going together into the next project. This has kind of sparked something for us. I know that Focus on the Family is looking at this. We know that this is a prominent problem all over the place. And I want you to think about this. Was there a lie that you heard repeated enough times that you went, whoa, that's one we gotta deal with? What was one that just was like you heard it a lot? Kids believed a lie. What was it?
Yeah. One of their peers had said something about them, and they just couldn't let it go. So they believed something that was said that just wasn't true. And it shook them in a way that they were afraid. They felt insecure. And a lot of times it was, my dad said this.
Yeah. It's a little bit emotional as you think through it. It's hard to go back through it, I know. I remember you were, every night, we were like, and his whole team, we just got to go out to dinner and sit there. But I think as we've worked through it, I just want to say this to you. Thanks for being willing to do this. I know it cost you guys to do this. And I just want to tell you, you guys did an amazing job. And I can't wait for this to be moved out now into the next stages of development and what God's going to do next. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
I want to share with you that as we went through this door, here's what we discovered. When it comes to death by suicide, mental health is a key factor. You might go, well, yeah, they heard something, they believed a lie, and at the early ages these kids are at, they can be impulsive, they act without thinking. They get down. They're dealing with adolescent hormonal issues anyway, but mental health is on a steep decline. And so as we went through this, we went in there looking at, okay, we're going to deal with the issue of suicide, death by suicide. But as we got in there, we started to realize that mental health is the root, but not just for death by suicide. Mental health is the root for addiction. Kids don't know what to do with their feelings. They don't feel right. They don't feel good. So what do? They want to escape, and so this leads them to addiction issues. Mental health issues lead to joblessness and lack of education. When you're dealing with depression and anxiety, when you're dealing with bipolar disorder and all different kinds of things, it's really hard to sit and listen well. And education doesn't stick, so to speak. It leads to all kinds of economic issues in the future. And so as we started to go down this road, we went, okay, this issue is an important issue. Not just for the suicide issue, but for a lot of other things that are going on. And there's a proactive side of this. How do we help families limit some of the issues that cause mental health issues? Because some of it's genetic, but some of it is based around their experiences growing up, what's lacking. And so how do we help parents understand how to be proactive, to see signs early, to maybe change the way they're doing things so that the outcomes are better? But in other cases, there's reaction sorts of things. Now we're finding out there's a problem. What do we do? And so I'm going to have Mike Wraith come up, who is the program director for the Health and Welfare Mental Health District 1. But before we do this, I want you to watch this video that we put together. And much of this comes from what we've been doing behind the scenes and some of what just happened last week in youth group. Watch this.
In the last several years, here in this area, we've had just a huge number of both kids and adults committing suicide. And so I just thought, well, maybe if we really started to punch down on these lies and help these people understand they're not true.
Since I was 13 till now, I've had 5 of my friends take their life. It's definitely had just a major impact on not only me, but my family and the community around me. Watching how it just increases every year is it's terrifying. I think it's a subject that needs to be touched on more.
Statistics across the United States show that in any one given year, 20% of people, so that's 1 in 5 of every person living in the United States, is going to experience some form of a mental disorder. And with kids 13 to 18, it's even higher.
This has to stop. I mean, these kids and parents and anybody needs to realize the magnitude of what a life means.
Nothing matters more than us saving every single human life in our district, in our community. This is our most important mission moving forward.
Well, Mike, you have been with us as you're a mental health professional. You work with Region 1 here. You've also been at the round table with us as we've been dealing with psychiatrists. We've been looking at counselors. And as you start to think about this underlying issue of mental health, you know, we kind of pinpointed several things that we want to do, that we want to make sure happens. Why don't you share with us, with these folks, what those are?
Yeah, so through the video series, we were able to do a workshop this last month, and what came of that was just, you know, beginning the discussion on talking about teen suicide and suicide in general, but like Jim said, we uncovered it. Really, you know, it starts with mental health issues, and what's the role that we have as a church, as a community, to really tackle this thing. You know, what was said earlier, just getting the conversation going is huge, and being able to really battle stigma, that's one of the huge barriers to begin with.
When you think about that stigma, what is that stigma that you hear a lot?
Yeah. So I worked in mental health for 15 years, and we work with individuals who are really severe in their mental illness, but also we have individuals who just have a daily struggle. And one of the things that they run into is just fear. They have this preconceived idea like, you know, I'm weak, or I really, it's too scary to go out there and admit that I need help. You know, a lot of times, many of us out here, we've been diagnosed with some kind of health issue. And when we hear that from a doctor, that can be a very scary thing. And so just put on top of that the idea of mental illness. Our culture, even today, still has a prejudice against the topic of mental health. And so fear, I think, is the number one thing, how that person's going to be perceived. And sometimes the barriers, even in the home, you know, you'll have parents who they're afraid to even admit that, you know, maybe my kid actually needs help. And sometimes it does become a pride issue. Sometimes it's a fear issue because they don't know where to start, and they don't know who to turn to. So,
yeah, and we've talked about the fact that there are a lot of mental health resources in our area,
Yeah.
but oftentimes people don't know how to get them. They don't know where to get them. So as we were talking as a team, we want to go, okay, how do we destigmatize this? Well, first of all, I think we have to be honest with our kids
Yeah.
that we struggle.
Right.
You know, that struggle, is no different, for instance, when you talk about diabetes. You have an insulin problem. And so if you have an insulin problem, you take insulin.
Yeah.
And if you have a serotonin or dopamine problem,
Right.
it's a chemical in your brain.
Right.
If it's not there, it can cause some issues. Why would we be willing to take insulin,
Right.
but not go get help for some of these other issues that have to do with our mind? And so how do we just say, wait a second, let's start thinking about this in a more open and honest way and bring that level down so that it's, because once people start hiding things and secretive and feel like they start going, I'm the only one, nobody understands me, people will judge me because they don't
Right.
understand. Once we lift the curtain a little bit, we start to be able to help people.
Yeah, the most common thing is isolation. And there's different levels of isolation. We have the actual literal isolation, which right now with the pandemic, it's not good. It's being fostered. And so people feel lonely, they feel isolated. But there's also the emotional isolation when it comes to realizing that you need help, that, I can't get up in the morning and go to school. It's too hard for me to get out of bed. I can't go to my job. And I don't want to admit that to somebody. And so, like you said, Jim, we really need to talk about these things often and how, and normalize it in the sense, like you just said, like any other illness. If you've got a family member who has cancer, you're not going to tell them not to go to the doctor. You're not going to tell them to go get help. And so we need to be able to foster a culture where we receive people openly and warmly who need help and are seeking help.
I remember when my sons were struggling, and I had to wrestle through this. There's some things that I can't help. This is real. My kids are dealing with some real stuff that they wouldn't choose. They're not playing games.
Right.
It's stuff that I want to be able to help, but I'm not quite sure how to help. I don't know what I'm supposed to say or not say. I grew up in the culture where it was, hey, you got hurt, rub a little dirt on it.
Right.
Right? You want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about.
Walk it off.
Walk it off. So that's the world I came from. But that doesn't work.
No.
That's not working.
No. Walks are good, by the way. Walks are good, but that's not the answer. Right?
And I'm not saying you shouldn't be disciplined, but there's some issues, I'm like, okay, hold on here. And to take my kids to a counselor would be admitting that I wasn't a good enough parent. And that maybe people would go, he's a senior pastor and his kids have to go to counseling. What's wrong with him? And I had to wrestle through this. Wait a minute, as a Christian, my belief system is everybody's mentally ill.
Yeah. Stop staring at me, Jim.
I mean, I think all of us are broken in some way. I mean, believe me, I've met a whole lot of narcissists in my time that haven't been diagnosed.
There you go.
Right? But because of the sinful nature we have, we're all broken in some way.
That's right.
Instead of pretending that we're perfect, let's get real, right? We have addiction issues, we have struggles. Let's be open and honest about it. So I had to go, okay, I don't know what to do with my kids.
Yeah.
And this is serious. And I need to get help. The Bible says a wise man seeks wise counsel. He doesn't have to have it all together. There are people that have expertise in counseling to ask the right questions. And I obviously needed to understand some of those issues, which is why I always think it's funny, because I think I poo-pooed it so much that I think the Lord said, oh, really? Now you're going to have depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so so that you're a little more empathetic. Now you're going to finally understand what this is all about. And so I was, what does it look like to make it okay that we're broken in a variety of different ways, and we give each other grace, we help support each other, we encourage one another? Because one of the things you and I believe is there's a spiritual realm here too. It's not just a medical problem.
Right.
There's a spiritual problem, and we believe that there's a spiritual enemy that when he figures out a hole, Jesus said that the devil is a liar, the father of lies, and he's a murderer. In other words, he lies, and his goal is to kill you. If he gets to work with us in isolation and fill in the gaps of communication, I don't know why you said something or did something. He fills in the gaps for us.
Yep.
If we don't understand that spiritual realm and take advantage of all the different ways of protecting and encouraging, and we're not open and honest, we're creating free market for the enemy in this whole thing.
Yeah. You know, and you mentioned believing the lies. That's huge. And again, with that isolation, whether it's, you know, an adult or a kid, they're left with those lies. That's all they have that's going through their mind. And so you asked earlier, you mentioned earlier, empathy. That's huge, and that's a huge step when it comes to connecting with people and actually getting them the help that they need. You know, I know there are parents out there tonight that are concerned about their kids, and how do I connect with my kid? You know, one of the things that, and this could be used for anybody, but one of the things, and it's a trap I've fallen into, is that when we hear our kids come to us, when they actually have the courage to say, you know what, I have a problem. This is happening to me. You know, sometimes, and I'm a therapist and everything, but sometimes I go right into problem-solving mode.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to say, hey,
get rid of their problems, fix it.
Yeah, here's what you do. This is what you do. And what we're not doing is we're not connecting with the person and the pain they're going through. And so if you're a parent out there and your kid's coming to you, what they're asking for is for you to connect with them emotionally, to recognize and be empathetic, you know, to practice, in other words, active listening, so that we actually recognize, hey, I see you're sad. I'm sorry you're going through that. You know, in that moment, they just want you to be there for them. They don't necessarily want you to solve their problems. Solving problems aren't bad, but especially in getting that conversation going, that's a huge step. And that's a huge step for anyone. You know, if we talk about it as a church, we have people walking in and out of the door and they start telling us things that are uncomfortable. You know, we hear things that are not fun to hear. You know, what's your response to that when someone tells you, you know what, I think about suicide, you know, 2 or 3 times a week? How would you respond to that? You know, I struggle. I get so depressed. I don't take showers for days. I don't do the things that you kind of take for granted. How do you respond to that? Do you show actual empathy? And so that's something as a church, as a family, that we need to start doing. That's one step that would really help to get the conversation going.
Well, we're not going to solve this issue tonight, but here's what we're doing together. We think it's an important enough issue, it's a big enough issue, that we are going to pray about it, we're going to come together, and we're going to do what we can to meet the needs of people out there. Not wait for them to come to us. We're going to figure out how to launch a team out there that meets people where they're at. When it comes to the secular world, we understand as a church that there are rules to that game. There's a separation of church and state as the school districts and the government officials see it. So how do we help them where they need help, they want help, and we'll play by those rules. When it comes to the church, now we get to dive into the specific spiritual issues that point to Jesus and that solution. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we help churches deal with this? Because these things are happening in churches. Addiction, depression, abuse, divorce, suicide. They're happening amongst spiritual people that go to church and they think going to church is putting on your happy face.
Right.
Instead of being real. We want to stomp that out. That's not Christianity as Jesus defined it. We want to be Christians as Jesus defines it. When in the world out there, our job is to help anyway. We find people of peace. We go, how do we meet you and help you in understanding the rules that you need to play by? How do we do that? We're going to go down that road. We're going to create content that focuses on what's really going on and discussions that lead to support for parents and families that have struggled with kids or marriages where there's mental health issues. We're going to be supports for those who have lost children and friends and family to death by suicide. We're going to try to teach people how to be good listeners and to care and to be compassionate. You know, we're going to work on this both in the school districts as God allows and in the churches. And so that leads us to what's going to be next. We're going to be focusing content on mental health. Yes, it comes, some of it's connected to the suicide prevention, Irreplaceable project, but we're going to be taking a step forward into this realm of mental health. Because in the churches, again, what would it be like to have these kinds of conversations. Teach parents how to have these conversations. A lot of parents said they didn't have those conversations with their kids or with their parents. No one showed them how to do that. And maybe they don't have that issue, so they just assume nobody does, and so it's being missed. How do we help people have these conversations? How do we help kids to be at least 700 kids that don't cyberbully, that are careful about what they say, that are compassionate to people when they're struggling, that see them and see their role as being a help to those people? What would it look like to help parents, to help kids? What could happen if we did that? Well, I believe it could be big. Or we could just do nothing and hope it just goes away. I don't think that's likely.
It's not going away.
And I think even right now, the new stats say that adults' mental health is 8 to 10 percentage points worse this year than last year, and it wasn't good last year in America. No. And so I'm excited about what was going to happen next, about the content. You've seen some of the things that have been created. These are the kinds of assets, resources we'll be creating for homes, for families, for churches, and as God opens the doors in the public sector as well. And so, Mike, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother.
Ron? Ron Nilsson, my friend. Now, many of you, Ron's been a member of our church for a long time, and Ron is a personal friend of mine, a close friend, a supporter. He is a tiger. And Ron is that guy that kind of sparked that conversation. He and I had a conversation. Are you trying to figure that out?
Trust me.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. He's the guy who we were having that conversation about that young kid that had completed death by suicide. And every time it would happen, Ron and I would be, what do we do? And that conversation sparked an idea in me. And so, Ron, I just am thankful for your passion, your compassion, and your friendship. And so, Ron's going to kind of explain to you tonight what we're asking you to do. You got it? You're on.
Got it.
You're on.
Got it.
All right.
I wish my mom and dad were both alive so they could see me in a church and be able to see some of the things that are important to our community. My name's Ron Nilsson. As they say, I'm a member of this church. I also own a company here called Ground Force. We build some of the world's largest mining equipment. I want to start out by saying what an honor this is to be here. I have 5 children, and I can't begin to express how much you love the children. As you get older, you look back and say, man, I could have loved them more. I take the time that I ever talk and take somebody's attention away from their family or whatever. I speak at a lot of big national conferences about workforce retention, growing your company, and working on the mining business and all that stuff. Insignificant compared to what we're talking about today. So I take this message very, very seriously. I think there we go. Irreplaceable project. I'm going to take you on a little tour. This is where I've been in the world. Been to 102 countries. This is insignificant to what we're talking about. But when you think about it, we live in the greatest country in the world that has more freedoms, more things to offer than anything, and we got a problem. If you don't care if you are on the left or the right of politics, I don't care. This problem is not conservative or liberal. We can't wait for our government to fix some of the biggest problems that we have in this world today. We have to. We are the people in our country. Who knows better about what our community needs here in Idaho, especially North Idaho. We do. Our community has risen to the challenges many, many times. And maybe you are not aware of the sacrifices and the hard work that our community's done to do this. And ICE has accomplished some incredible things without the government. And all it takes is a handful of people with a vision, with a goal, with an outcome. We can change the world. Example? I'm the least techie guy you have. Change slide. That didn't work. Hey, we got to have an IT guy here. Mr. Putman? What? He's coming. Hey, IT guy, you better sit there because these guys got dinner coming. I pushed the button, nothing happened. I push a button, nope, there. Let's go back. There we go. Stay. How much they pay you? Because you can just stay right there. I'll pay you for this 2 minutes. My time is worth more than, no, I won't say that. We have hundreds of kids that go home to an empty house at night. Hundreds of kids. We have hundreds of kids in our community that don't have double parents. We have hundreds of kids that go home to an empty house that is dark at night, and they're scared. And when we found out the importance of having a kid have some security, what do? We says, not in our community are we going to let kids be hungry. We're not in our community are we going to do this. So we built not just one, but we built 2 boys and girls clubs here, one in Post Falls and one in Coeur d'Alene. 5,000 kids attend this. The cool part is they go in there and they get fed, sometimes the last meal of the day. They get their homework assistant. We have retired people that want to serve, but they don't even know where to begin to serve. They come into our Boys and Girls Club and they help. They say, hey, Billy, where's your backpack? Let's find out what you got for homework. Let's get that done. And then we'll tell the parents, we'll help you with the homework. You hate that. My mom and dad hated my homework. My wife's good at it. I'm not, so I didn't help at all in my house. But we're going to help that, but what we'd like you to do is to take that half hour or an hour and spend some one-on-one time with your kids. For the first time, sometimes in their life, they felt loved, cherished, and felt good. Their lives and the stories that we hear every single year from these kids, and one of the common things is the last 2 students of the year for the Boys and Girls Club, both campus last year, they both talked about how they fantasized about how they would kill themselves. And when they're telling you this stuff, you're kind of, that's impossible. Their lives were changed forever. Let's talk about another vision that our community stepped on. Our education system here wants to get us all to go to college. There's nothing wrong with going to college, but there's a large percentage that don't need a college education to do what they want to do. So we had a vision that we were going to start to force our higher education to put more career and technical education in, and our high schools to do that. They didn't have 1 square inch of career and technical education in the whole county of Kootenai. And our college, our local college, the NIC, shut down half of theirs. So when I went there, you can tell by my passion in there, I walked in and I said, hey, Michael. He says, that's Dr. Brooks to you. I said, well, Dr. Brooks, we're going to get on our first name basis because what you're doing to our community is destroying it. We can't hide. We have our own training sessions here. So what do? We gathered all the businesses together, 35 of the top CEOs in this town, in a private room and says, What are we doing? Stop looking to the government. Stop looking to our education. We have a solution. Let's come up with it. And so what we did is we bought 20 acres on the prairie. We put a sign on the building that says Future Home at K-Tech. Nobody knew what it was. It was none of their business. It wasn't their money that went into it. And then we started working with the school. After 1 year, we had it. We had the model done. And then we called our 3 school superintendents. If you're from Rathdrum, Harry Amon came down. Not Harry Amon, Chuck Kinsey came down. Coeur d'Alene, Harry Amon, and then Jerry Kane. Brought him, said, I'm going to buy your lunch. Walked in the room, and there's 30 CEOs, and they're looking at me like, oh, something's bad going to happen. We got the most powerful guys in the community here. And we told them what we want to do. We have a vision that says we can teach our kids education, and we can get them a skill, we can get them a job, and we can get them going. And they said, well, Ron, that's what we want. But you're not doing it. We went for the first year and went into a lot of homes where kids had dropped out of school and said, come back, we got a vision for you. We talked to the school districts and they got all excited. And today, before we go to today, we said we're going to have to run a levy if we're going to make it part of the school system. This levy has to be passed all 3 school districts on the same day. Said, okay, never heard of that before, but let's go. I got a call from a superintendent of schools out of Boise, and he said to me, he said, Ron, are you aware you have to pass this at 66 2/3 in all 3 districts on the same day? I said, no, nobody told me that. He says, impossible. He says, don't say that to the team I have, because they're just going to rile them up. And we got them all together and say, let's go. And the school district said, what can we do to help? And it's nothing against the school district. They're part of a system that doesn't want people to push them. What happened was we got these people together and we went to every Grange Hall, we went to every possible meeting you could have here, from chambers to Rotaries, and we told them the vision that would attract people here because we have a strong economy and we have a good skilled workforce. We passed that levy on the same day in all 3 school districts at 68.5. We beat them by 1.5 points. Incredible. Today we have 405 kids enrolled in K-Tech. We're maxed out. We can't get them, the ones that want to come in here. Our graduation rate with these loser kids, we used to call them the loser school. We went drained a lot of the kids out of loser school. Those loser kids, 100% of these kids graduated in the last 5 years. A number you will never hear in high school. 99.7% placement rate. Well, I don't know what that number means. That means 99.7% of our graduates every year graduate with a high school diploma, a certificate of completion in an industry, and a job offer. You take a kid that has no self-esteem, didn't think he'd ever graduate, you give him a high school diploma, and you have somebody come beg him to go to work for you, man, his self-esteem goes up. We need your help. Chances are that we know somebody that suffers some type of mental illness. My son, at the age of 15, I have 5 kids. He was always the kid that his glass was 1/4 full and the rest of the family had 3. We didn't understand it. We used to listen to him. We'd always say, my wife would say, oh, Chewy's got a cloud over his head, you know. But one day we found out the belt broke. We got him. we got him in to a mental health institution. And through the grace of God, he lived to be able to get to that point. And today, he's a contributor to society. My sister, I grew up in a very abusive house, dysfunction like you can't believe. My sister was a product of that, and with her mental health, became a heroin addict early on in life. 3 years ago, at the age of, whatever she was, 62, I get a call from her. I'm overseas, and she says, "Hey, Ronnie, how are you?" I said, "I'm fine." So what's up? Did I tell you how much I love you? I said, "Yeah, you do all the time." "Mom, Dad are gone. You helped me with the death deal and what do you call it? Inheritance, whatever they get when parents leave money and pass it on." "Yeah." She said, "Well, I just wanted to call and tell you I love you." Hung up the phone, and I said to my wife, she said, "What's that?" So my sister told me that she said, wanted to tell me how much she loves me. 3 days later, we came in the United States. My brother called me and says, "Hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but the police want me down here at the apartment for your sister, for our sister, and she had committed suicide with a drug overdose. She had enough drugs in there to probably kill 20 people." One of my employees, so you talk about a drug problem, you talk about mental health problem. Let's talk about a boy in Post Falls, Idaho that had a 4.3 GPA, was captain or going to be the starting quarterback in Post Falls. His father was a preacher. The most incredible family, and I know each and every one of them. Kills himself. I went to the funeral. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen. All their classmates weeping, falling on the ground and crying, all asking the same question, why? Why? Well, how could that happen? I never heard an answer that I thought really answered their question. Irreplaceable. If you lose one of your 5 children, which I had, can I replace that one child? No, he's irreplaceable. If you're going to lose them to drugs like my sister, when she died, I miss her every day. If they go homeless, sometimes I hear people say they haven't seen their kid in 5 years. They think he's still alive. They don't know. If you ever see them, they will always be in emptiness. Because why? Because they are irreplaceable. What an incredible, simple statement that tells the whole story. If you what do we need from you? How can you help? I think first of all is we need your support. There's always a naysayer. I don't know what's wrong with those people that have all those drug problems and health problems and struggle. Sometimes it's denial, because if you go back a generation, they have the same problem, but they don't necessarily want to be able to come and support it. We have to support this. This is at that level that is so epidemic levels that if we don't stop it now, what are we going to do? If it's not our community that takes the lead on this and takes the information that we find and we go to the plumber, which I talked to Chief Allen, they don't talk about it, but they got it at the same level or worse than we do. So we, as a community, have to look at what we can do. Second of all, share the message to your neighbors, to your family, and to the rest of the people that you talk to about there's a movement happen here. These people, these community leaders are committed. We're not going to set a goal. We're going to commit that we're going to stop this. Because if we can't stop it in our community with a community that works together, where is it going to stop? We can produce the drugs, sedate the people. When they take a poll in our school district, and 61% of the kids or more are saying they contemplated suicide, those are time bombs ready to go off. And each time somebody lights one off, it just justifies their feeling. How do we do that? We raise some money. If money's the problem, then we don't have a problem. Think about that. If money's the problem, we don't have a problem. The problem can be fixed if we get that money applied in the right way. If you got $5, that's what you can afford. God bless each and every one of you for the $5 you put in. If you got more, that's awesome. With our community support, we can lead our nation. Think about that. When's the last time they ever said Kootenai County is a leader in our nation? No, right now we rank one of the leaders in suicide. Bring the awareness on how bad this mental illness is, both in our homes. Talk about your childhood, my childhood. Let's talk about what's going on in our schools today. We have to raise this awareness, because if we don't, it's just going to keep going. Thank you guys for your hearts. Thank you for your love and compassion, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Ron. Love you, buddy. We gave you a card, and we just want you to take it home. Think about this, pray about it. Maybe you know somebody that can that cares about this with you, and you know people that have dealt with this all around the country. Our hope is that as we come together, we trust the Lord, we work together. God's going to use us one child at a time, one school at a time. You know, one home at a time. We're gonna take back this issue, and you know, people make decisions. You can be the best parent. You can have the right conversations. Kids have to make choices, and sometimes, no matter what you've done, they make choices. But we want to be able to say, to the best of our ability, we've done our part. We've done our part, and we want to help bring awareness. We want to destigmatize this. We want to educate people on what they can do. And we want to reach out into our community, partnering with the church and other churches that will be involved, with the government agencies, the schools. And we're going to do our best. And I hope you'll participate with us in this. We're going to be working forward to create all sorts of kinds of support systems, because there's not a lot of support systems. We've got people that don't have insurance, that can't afford the medical help, or there's a lack of medical help in particular for kids 18 and under in this community. We're going to be taking on these issues as we go. And some of you have passion in that and have abilities in that. We'd love to hear from you, love for you to join the team and be a part of what we do next. I'm going to close in prayer. I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for making time. And some of our educators here who are on the front lines of this. Chris McDougall, I just love you, dude. Proud of you. Becky, you know, I know there are other teachers. I don't know if Lynn's here, but there's so many teachers that are on the front lines. They need our support. And let's just pray and we'll close. Thank you for coming tonight. Thanks, Lord, for the time. We put this in your hands. Show us where you want us to go. Supply what's needed in all of this. I know you're already doing that. Lord, help us to use this money in a very precise way to meet the need of this community. We lift up our kids. Lord, we care about all of our people. We care about the adults that are struggling with this. But Lord, in particular, we want to minister to these kids. Get them through these tough years and give them tools so that they're not the 40-year-old or the 50-year-old or the 60-year-old later on that are still dealing with this without information, without understanding of what's going on in their own minds. We want to help these kids, Lord. Show us how. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
This is a house of worship. This is a place of